have been popular with human beings since we could start writing. And some of the earliest things, apparently, were lists. The earliest things written on tablets were lists of plants or animals. I think this is from the Rosetta Stone. I'm not quite sure, but I found it in an article that talked about how lists have endured and perdured for ages. The lists often are used for ourselves to do something, or other people telling us what to do. So I found this is another early list, that kind of a list. But there seemed to be another man with a beard who makes lists in Western culture anyway. Yes. Yeah, so two people telling you what to do or making a list. Lists can be ominous as well. The idea is your name on the list could be very good, or it could be a very bad thing as well. Sort of, has anyone seen The Mikado, the musical? The Mikado has a little list of people to get rid of or do something bad to. Let's look at how we could use lists in class now. I'll be asking you to do other activities. I'm echoing a bit. 6 activities I've got. We'll do as many as we can. All right? First activity I do with students is I get a list of things and I ask them to guess what is the list. So here it is. Here's a list of things. I want you to talk with a partner, a minute or two. What is this list? Seven Wonders of the World. In fact, it's the new 7 Wonders of the World. In 2007, it was the result of a sort of 2-year project of internet voting and all kinds of stuff. They wanted to create the list of the new 7 Wonders of the World. And this is what they came up with. So I would maybe, with a list of anything, and asking students to guess what the list is as a way into a topic. All of the activities I'm going to suggest, by the way, are quick ones. They're not long ones. Okay? Another alternative to doing this would be to dictate a list. Lists, another linguistic feature of lists, which is interesting, are that lists often contain chunks. By chunks, I mean 2 or more word groupings. For example, that list there had, White House, Spanish Steps, those kind of things. But also, on shopping lists, you get chunks. And that's why I think it's interesting sometimes to study shopping lists to learn frequent collocations. There's a very interesting website. I don't have it written here. It's called found.com. Found as in lost and found, or Found Magazine. If you look up Found Magazine on Google, you'll find it. What Found does is people submit or scan in things that they have found on the street, or if I bought this jacket and I found a note in it from the shopkeeper who left something there. Love notes, lists as well. Here's an interesting shopping list on Found, which illustrates the chunks, rather unusual ones. My question here is you have to think, who is the person writing the list? What? So they need a back scratcher, a wig or toupee. The Love Actually soundtrack, not really sure about that. Chipotle gift certificate, someone tells me that's a restaurant. The obligatory framed picture of me or us. And a big thing of Diet Coke with lime. But you can see the chunks already. The big thing of Diet Coke. Well, back scratcher is a chunk, not a very frequent one. But I would say, is this a man or a woman? What do you think? A man, yeah. It's not the woman buying the toupee for and what's the list for?
It seems to give them on Valentine's Day.
Oh, on Valentine's Day.
That has something to do with their relationship.
Could be, it could be. That's what I liked about Found Magazine, is that there's no answer. It's a mystery, so it leads to creative thinking activity here. I quite like that one. But in more mundane or normal, like if you make normal shopping lists, you'll probably find that there are frequent collocations coming out. Okay? Chunks. Here's another, my favorite one on Found Magazine is this to-do list. This is like my to-do list when I got it this morning. Like, first thing, I have to walk. Rule the world, And then decided to go to work, take up the next time. And I don't know who baby is, but I'm really curious. So thank you, Found Magazine, for putting this up. This was apparently found, next to a car in a parking lot. But with to-do lists, there's another activity that I like to do. Actually, can you do this with a partner? We still have a little bit of time. Can you write down, make a to-do list of 5 things? But I would like you to include 3 things you would like to do and 3 things that you've done, and 2 things you've already done. So, I think you have already given up smoking. You haven't painted the kitchen yet. Okay. Yeah, you got the idea. So you're making guesses. Yes. You've already you haven't, and the person says yes or no. Yeah, and then you can guess what the grammar point that we are practicing here. Yeah. Up until now, all the lists I've been sharing with you have been lists that I have chosen and dictated to you or asked you to manipulate. Of course, the students can make their own lists. This is where you can have lists, personal lists. We already saw that with the best and worst sites or whatever, people could then make their own lists. Here's one that I've done recently at the beginning of the course. It's about, we talk about our names, we introduce ourselves. I had this with an intermediate group, and then I shared this list. Bad things about having the name Lindsay Clandfiled. Someone always says this to me as well. People think I'm a woman. I'm sure now you won't, but usually after every one of my talks, someone comes up and says, you know what I thought? So that's one bad thing. People spell my first name wrongly. So it's the D. If they get the first name right, they invariably misspell the last name. It's difficult for non-English speakers to remember and or pronounce. I live in Spain. Good things about having the name Lindsay Clandfiled, I can find myself easily. There are no others. Okay? So I share a little list like this with students about good things and bad things about having my name. And then I ask you, my students, to do the same. Can you think of one good thing and one bad thing about having your name? I was asking some people to volunteer. Good things or bad things? George.
No one thinks I'm a woman.
That's a bad thing or?
No, I think because of Colonel Pickering in Pygmalion, people think I might know something about languages. That's the good thing.
Right.
The bad thing is they tend to think I'm about 142.
Your name for everyone?
George Pickering.
Right, the other thing I've noticed about this is making a list. Since when I ask, lots of people love lists, I've noticed the students are quite happy to do more writing if I put it in a list. It's an achievable thing to write. It's also achievable to read, even those lists where there are individual paragraphs about things. You know, coming back to the 6 greatest wins of Manchester United that I found myself reading, even though I don't like football. They were small texts that are easy to process. So that's another one. All of these lists, I think, can be, that you can study lists for the language, for chunks. You can use lists for pronunciation practice. You can use lists as reading or listening. But most of all, I like using lists as springboards for discussion. I now find that I can make a class quite easily and quickly with just a list as my starting point. And students like to discuss things like lists. Well, lots of my students do. And I think that some of you have enjoyed discussing lists, have you? Yep. And then I have one last one that I want to share with you. I have a blog that I've started, a blog project I've started. A blog is like an online diary thing. Do I need to explain blogs? Okay. Well, anyway, it's this site, sixthings.net. There's a handout that some of you have. You can get one here. And I'm collecting lists from different people, anything connected with language teaching. Anyway, the first one I did was 6 gift ideas for a language teacher. And my rule that I've made myself is I can only have 6 things.